Welcome to episode 2 of the Metaphysics summer course. This is Joseph Anthony. I'm part of the Cyber Hemispherical Slate or Cybernetic Flat Table. It's like a little offshoot syndicate or polymerization of the Spiritual Hedonists group, the Church of Entropy Anti-Hedonist group, the more empirical and fringe empirical perceptual research group from Gustavo's side, and also my own side, which is it does pander to metaphysics, but is ultimately about biophysics and neural cybernetics and the mesoscale interfascia at that point, which is currently outside the confines of modern empirical practice. There's some work in the Lieber lab, but that's neither here nor there. This video is going to be about process ontology or the perceptual process itself. What does it mean to be what is termed in some tradition or understanding as witness consciousness is the idea that you are not, say your name is Joe, right? You are not Joe. You are not a human being. You are not a metaphysical object. You are the video of what it is like for a human being named Joe to have an experience, an inactive experience embodied in three dimensions of space and one temporal rollout. So, why is this significant? Because going back to the original video, that Ben Goertzel talks about ontology coding for different logical cascades. You know, if you have ontology A, you have logical cascade A in the same set of stuff, and same thing with ontology B, logic B, etc. So, what it means here is to understand that when you adopt a different, we can call them masks or unmasks, so to speak, co-masks, if you will. This idea is that when you take a mask on or off, you adopt a different behavior, you adopt a different circumstance. And that's the latter is the more difficult part to understand, right? Because you're essentially positing that you are your perceptual process, whatever that may be, it's almost like a non-existent thing, almost like a metaphysical object, right? Or maybe it is, in depending on the framework. I would have to ask Jen, my mentor, in this respect. But you have to entertain this idea of interference or this idea that okay, so I have a ripple every day I wake up or every time there's a circadian kind of peak experience throughout the day, and you ride on that. But you want to be careful. Something that me and Anthony Joseph talked about that is pretty profound is this idea of stemming from some emulator theory in AI, or this idea that you have a simulation trajectory, and then at the same time you have an emulator trajectory that diverges. How do you get this emulator trajectory to, and this is a metaphor here, so just bear with me for a second. How do you get that to gravitate back and, also be cost effective and optimal, instead of diverging into non-empirical territory or non-plausible territory? Well, this is very similar in terms of control theory, optimal control theory with respect to your inactivism and your mental fabrications or your models that you build. You are a model of a model according to Yosh Bach, and or a model of a model, like a third order model. But then your thoughts themselves are this projective model on top of all of that. Here's the thing though, just like if slap a bird in the face, right? That's going to have a cascade of weird effects. You're going to feel some type of way about yourself and your identity. In the same way, when you build these models and have these thoughts, doubt, hesitation, certain emotions that you kind of like feed and give fodder to, you actually change the trajectory of the original what we were calling in the analogy a simulation trajectory. This emulation is great, but you have to understand that what the emulation is the simulation with thoughts that perturb the original signal trajectory. the original simulation signal trajectory. I know this sounds a little crazy, but the idea is quite simple, is that if you go your whole day, and it's not to say cease thinking, but it is to say cease deleterious thinking, because that will definitely have negative network effect cascades. If you and this is actually phenomenologically verifiable, but because it's considered second person science, it gets thrown away by the boomer empirical kind of industrialists as crack pottery or woo-woo Deepak Chopra type discourse. We're not Deepak Chopra here. If I had a GoPro on top of my hat, if I had, things going on that I could record with Ray-Ban Wayfarers, and I had a massive video corpus, multimodal corpus, in fact, with as many, you know, sensors as could have. I could essentially build a a video model of my experience and also see how, if I had EEG or G-Tech technology on me as well. And this all adds up and compounds financially to almost $50,000 depending on the quality. You need to understand that there can be experiments and hypothesis formulation, testing, uh, selection, right? So there's something going on here with phenomenology. You can also use, digital twin technology to build, these Gaussian splats of and infer an emulation or a simulation of your simulation, I should say, not to get too confusing, and then understand what it is like to have model-based and model-free emulation trajectories on top of that phenomenal signal. And then I guess an interesting question is, how do you gravitate? We can do it intuitively through yoga to gravitate that emulation trajectory back to this original intended manifestation. But it just becomes bothersome because, again, yoga is a woo-woo or crack pottery type of conception in modern empiricism, or at least it was. It's kind of like the C word. It's the Y word, right? We're not allowed to say it. Um, but there is more of a logic to this as science and a methodology and a meta methodology that can be grappled with and is tangible. And that's what Jen actually works on. So, among other things. So, I think that should cut this video short. I can't make it too long. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.